Thank you very much, Scotty. We have got ourselves a marvelous tree over here, and I'm sure the viewers back home have seen it before. I am not connected right now to my radio, so I won't hear your comments, but it's an absolutely gorgeous specimen of a torchwood, also known as Balanites magnotii, and it produces a very nice little pod. And the pods are actually flammable and have been known to be used very similar to little tea lights that you could put in the bottom of a paper bag. You can actually light them and they will burn. So they're very, very flammable and also very, very palatable. Giraffe, kudu, elephant will eat this tree at absolute will. Now, it is a ritualized emetic if you use the roots. So by taking the roots, it will cause your body to vomit. It is a good way of purging yourself. And in Zulu culture, it was very well used in strengthening the body through scarification. And if you've not heard of that before, what the Zulus like to do is they actually get their witch doctor to cut them. Generally on their chest, you find on the chest, sometimes you find the scars on their face or on their back. And then they'll daub some of the, obviously, I think it's got something to do with a product from the seed itself, and they'll gouge that into the wound, and then they believe that to be a strengthening agent. This was something done a very long time ago. It's almost like a talisman. I know a lot of cultures in the world use a talisman or a medallion of some sort, and then they believe that that will strengthen them in some way, and their mindset believes it so much that they can go into battle or into any form of combat with absolute strength and certainty, believing that what they've done is for the betterment of their being. Absolutely magnificent specimens. Probably one of the best specimens of the torchwood that I've seen. Absolutely gorgeous. There's a row of them over here, but definitely one of the biggest ones I've seen in the Sabi sands or in my life. Very sharp thorns. It's also commonly known as green thorn. Double row of thorn or double thorns that come out at the end, and very, very palatable. Giraffe and kudu, as I say, elephant, love these trees. So where you find them a little bit smaller, they just get hedged. These beautiful round balls that end up being just maintaining sort of like a hedge for a very long time. This one obviously got to a height long before the elephants had much of a say in the matter in this area, and it got past that browsing height, and it is doing a marvelous job. So that is some wonderful facts of a very nice tree, the Balanites. And so we're going to move on from our beautiful specimen and going to go to Taylor, who has got herself her own tree.
We have got ourselves our own tree. This one is a knobthorn, though. Now, you can see that there's a yellow-billed hornbill there. There was another bird that was sitting with it at one point, and I actually heard it. It was a Sterling's wren warbler, which is one that I haven't seen for quite some time. Now, I'd love to play you the call, but like I said, I have to reinstall my bird app today when I get back to camp. But that was quite nice to just hear, and hopefully we'll be able to find it bounding from tree to tree again. I don't think it's gone too far, so we're just waiting for it to call before we make our next move. Hornbill, what's got your feathers ruffled? Have you seen a caterpillar or something that you quite like the look of? It wouldn't surprise me. Something's definitely grabbed its attention, but I want to grab your attention with something else, in fact. Now, I often talk about my time in Zambia and how I loved it and how much fun it had. And for those of you that have been watching me over the last little while, you know I always talk about the anna trees. And I've only found two here in the northern Sabi sands, where we've been able to drive, and both of them are on Chitwa. But unfortunately, they're just in areas where there's too many gremlins for us. But I'd basically repositioned about 100 times trying to get a nice view of it and trying to pick up some signal, but we just couldn't. So I brought something along. So in my hand are the pods of the Fade Herbia albida. Now, we used to use them as decorations in the camps and they don't look like much now. But as they start to ripen, because they're not quite ripe yet, they go different colors. Some of them go a maroon in color, some go bright yellow, and then they typically twist. Here's a good one. This is a good example. They normally start to twist like that. They almost look like a guarri leaf, don't you think? That's quite cool. But we'll keep an eye out on them, because when they do start changing color, I'll pick them again. And if I'm not mistaken, I've forgotten, it's one of the Playboy butterflies that the larvae actually feeds on the seeds. I've just forgotten exactly which one it is. Maybe one of the brown Playboy butterflies. So we need to start looking around for them. Maybe we'll start to find some larvae in some of these seed pods. But they really are quite nice. And this is what the animals feed on during the dry season in Zambia, because most of the trees lose their leaves, barring a couple of mapanis. Nobody likes to eat mapani leaves. And the rest of the trees and all the grass pretty much disappears, so there's almost nothing for the animals to eat. But the anna trees like to grow near water, so they grow along the banks of the Zambezi River, and that's typically the only water that's around during dry season. So all the animals move from the base of the escarpment, a little bit like what we're seeing in Kenya, and go all the way down to the Zambezi River to feed on some of the reeds and the grasses. If you're lucky enough and you can swim quite well, you can swim out to the islands like the elephants and the buffalo do. Waterbuck would do it as well. Otherwise, you have to rely on eating these pods, and they're really, really, really good in terms of a fodder for impala, for kudu, for elephants, for hippos. They'll all start feeding on these pods from the anna trees. And the elephants love it. And it's when you can see the elephants standing up on their back legs. I was lucky enough to see it actually quite often from the comfort of the lodge. But we'll keep those, and I'll keep checking that tree, and we'll have a look and see what other interesting things we can see over the next little while. Right, what else are we going to find out here? It's been a little bit on the quiet side. That's okay. We're trying to do birding. Steve is also doing birding though, so before it flies away, let's go see which one it is.
Always birding, Taylor. I am always birding, even when I'm waiting for the plane or the bus. Always birding. There are birds everywhere, and we have got a nice silhouette of a bird there. It's quite far away, well, very far away. We wanted to stop here because the view from here is just sensational. To me, it looks like it's possibly a Wahlberg's or a tawny, but from this distance, I'm not going to stake my name on it. It's definitely a brown raptor. It's not a brown snake eagle because the head is wrong. But as Ferg pans out there, you'll just have a look at how beautiful this landscape that we are perched on is. Absolutely stunning. This is the Sabi Sands. This is Djuma. Far as the eye can see, just trees. Russell, new viewer, welcome to the show. We are in the northeast of South Africa, in the province of Mpumalanga, in a place called the Sabi Sands, just on the Kruger National Park. We joined the Kruger National Park, so sort of northeast South Africa, Kruger National Park, and then east of us is Mozambique. So we're right up in the northeastern corner in a huge wilderness conservation area. And it's wonderful to have you on the show. Please feel free to send more comments and questions through. We'd love to educate you and tell you all sorts of wonderful things. And I found for you another grass that I haven't seen in some time because the inflorescence has not been showing. But Ferg can show the inflorescence there. It is quite a messy bunch of leaves, or of a messy inflorescence, but quite characteristic of your love grass family. And it likes to grow in depressions, in little drainage dips where there's a bit of runoff water. I think you can get, look, very, very messy. It's got a little bit of a pinkish tinge to it now. That's the pollen that is forming on the plant, the reproductive parts. But what is the easiest thing to recognize this plant with, if I'm just gentle and don't move the car too much, is if I go to one of these little nodules on the plant here, right there at the node, you can see there's a little bit of a pink backdrop there. And if you touch it, it is extremely sticky, and it is actually got a gummy sort of texture to it. Let's see how that's sticking to my finger. Very easy to identify this as gummy grass. Eragrostis is the family. It's a love grass, and very nice scientific name to remember because era all of the love grasses. Hera was the goddess of love. And so all the love grasses named after Hera. So Eragrostis, and this one, because of the gummy stickiness, is called Gummy Flora. So quite a nice, easy scientific name to remember. And we find it in sort of drainage depressions. You can see just on the right-hand side, Ferg, we are just here below the seep line. We have got the silver cluster leaves just above us on the right, and just below them in this little drainage depression. We know we talk about the silver cluster leaves and how they are, sorry about my mic there, and how they sort of show that water is coming to the surface, because essentially what happens is that you've got the silver cluster leaf band, and I've said this before, but where the soil meets, where the sand meets the clay layer, it forces water to the surface, and a plant like this, Eragrostis' gummy grass, grows in this sort of flay-like or marsh-like environment. It doesn't look very wet on the surface, but by finding grasses here, it is a very good indication that water comes down through the sandy section, hits the clay, and then pushes up, and that's what this band of silver cluster leaves also is indicating. So quite a nice thing to see. In the summer months, it's very easy to see. As the season starts to sort of fade on, it's very hard to see that, but there are small little signs, indications that if you pay attention to, you can see. Fantastic. That was a nice little view. Nice explanation there for the gummy grass. Definitely very characteristic to feel. My fingers are still a bit sticky. James Richard, nice to hear from you, sir. What tree species in the area requires the most space to grow? That is a very interesting question. Tree species, individual tree or species? I don't know. I mean, this area here has got huge amounts of trees growing. The marulas take up quite a bit of space. They don't seem to have too much growing underneath them. But then you find them often up at the top. You can also find them in the bottom. But then along the riverine areas, you have large jackalberries, large leadwoods. They require a fair bit of space. But then they also have lots of stuff growing in underneath them, purely because of the competition for the water resources there. But we do find clusters of these silver cluster leaves growing in bands, and it's purely got to do with the soil that they're able to grow like that, and they kind of outcompete any other species growing in that area. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question very well, but yeah, I mean, sicklebush will form thick stands that will completely take over an area, but that is from a whole lot of seeds germinating at the same time and lack of fire. Ooh, what bird was that? There are birds all over the place today, folks. I wish I could capture all of them for you on the camera, but they are so quick and fast moving that I can only just train my binoculars to them before they disappear. And Ferg, it's a hard job. He's trying to keep up with my birding. It's difficult. It is a difficult job, but we love it, and we'll continue to bring you these beautiful birds. Lawsy, I'm not sure whereabouts in the world you are from, but we are in South Africa in the southern hemisphere, and it is our summer months. It will soon be going into autumn in the next month or so. So we are in full swing. Probably it's March now, so we're right at the end of our summer. So summer going into autumn. So the inverse of the northern hemisphere, and that is why it's so green and so lush. This is the normal state of affairs for this time of year, barring when we don't have drought, and we've just come out of a terrible drought, but the vegetation is looking great. There's lots of leaves, lots of grass. I did a walk yesterday, nearly lost myself in the vegetation. It was so fantastic, and it's boding well for the dry season. We get our rains during the summer months, and that is what provides the forage and the leaf and all the food for everything that survives here. And as soon as sort of March, April passes, then we don't expect any more rain. Then we go into a long dry period through our autumn and winter months until spring, which sometimes rain can come as early as September, but it doesn't happen that often, and if it does, it's not huge amounts that turn this environment over. But the dynamics of the savanna are geared to that. It is a summer rainfall environment, relatively low, only about 250 to about 700 millimeters of rain per year, depending on where you are, and that is what allows the trees to not completely overtake the grass layer. If we had more rainfall, this area would become a forest, and that would be a very different type of environment. We do have forests further east or west towards the mountains, the escarpment. It's where the rain shadow accumulates all that rainfall throughout the year. We get marvelous forests up there. So we've been following that silver cluster leaf band, and we're now slowly heading down the slope. We gave up on Tamba's tracks because they headed north into Buffelshoek, and we weren't able to follow him. So we've done a big loop around on the western side, looking for whatever we might find. But I know we are having a fantastic morning with Scott Dyson and that little cub. I am sure you are absolutely loving it. Some Aramark babblers calling off to the right. A nice interaction with them yesterday. Ooh, there goes a little pig. We have got some Pumbas in front of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not seen an animal for some time. So let's see how they respond to the vehicle. I've made this comment before that warthogs, I think, watch Safari Live because they know we follow leopards. They never seem to be very relaxed. But these two seem quite chilled. Looks like two females. No, the one on the left looks like a young male with the two warts on the head. Is it? Yep. When in doubt, look at the genitals below the tail, and that will always give you an idea. They are quite relaxed. Off they go trotting into the vegetation. And while we continue on, we're going to go back to Taylor, who I believe has also got for herself a beautiful, beautiful bird.
One of the most iconic birds in Africa, I don't think one that you can get sick of seeing or even hearing, and that's the African fish eagle, which is just perched up in the tree quite beautifully. Now, we're driving on the the Chitwa driveway a moment ago, and I saw this big raptor fly quite low. I'm trying to work out if it was the fish eagle, because it sort of flew in this direction, so it may have been. I wonder what it was doing in a thicket on the ground. We do know that they can scavenge, or that they do scavenge every now and then when the opportunity is available, so perhaps there was something small. I can't imagine why else a big bird like this would be sitting in a very grassy and dense area with lots of trees. Unusual, but it's made its way almost back towards Chitwa Dam. Now, before I get even more distracted, I've just heard some squirrels alarming. I know not to trust the squirrels, because they're cheeky, and they often just alarm for no reason. I don't know why. I feel like they can be a bit temperamental at times and then just start shouting for no reason. So we'll have a little look and, give the squirrel benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's telling the truth today. Because there are some impala and a couple of waterbuck up ahead too, and they weren't making any noises. I'd honestly rather trust a waterbuck or an impala alarming over a squirrel. I suppose those squirrels got a lot more things trying to go after it, from big raptors. Maybe it saw the fish eagle and was alarming at the fish eagle, to snakes, and to all sorts of wonderful things. Everyone's very cool, calm and collected in here today, so we'll just carry on. This is a hot spot though for Hosanna. He does like it around here, so we might take some of the thicker sort of more tree covered roads. Oh, hang on, wait, there's a squirrel. We can get our squirrel now on the middle of the road. No, come back. Don't you go too quickly. There it is. And it's found itself a reward as well. Can you see that? It's got itself a marula nut. This is going to be really nice to see. You can also see that's a male squirrel, obviously. And they're going to be collecting them from elephant dung. Oh, are you going to bury it? No? Or are you looking for another one? See how it's digging with its little feet? Maybe it's trying to get two to take another one back so that it doesn't have to come back again. All those nuts are so tasty if you can get them out. Let me try and see if I can go forward again. Maybe we can get another view of it. Normally, though, they are quite startled by the car. Let's give it a bash. Maybe we get lucky. It's always fun watching squirrels carry those marula nuts around. No. Oh, no. It's still there. It's just in the grass. Maybe we can get another view. See if it's going to take it up the tree. Which, yeah. In there, yeah. And somewhere there, it's just hiding amongst the tall grass for a minute. Let's see if we can see it. Buffalo weaver, red-billed buffalo weaver, good one. See, oh, there it is. It's moving. You got it, Seb. It's just going to the right now. Having a little scratch. Being quite sneaky, slinking through the grass. That's a better spot for a squirrel to sit, though. And I also don't think it was this one that was alarming. The sound sounded like it was coming from high up. Oh, it's just jumped up to the top left. There we go. It's making its way into the tree now. And we go a little bit further down. Right at that base, you might just be able to see it moving just slightly. Where did you go now? It's underneath. It's in between the... There we go. It's just jumped to the back. Off it goes. I think it's going to go home now and stash that. Or perhaps have an early breakfast. That was quite nice to see. Not an obliging squirrel, but a squirrel nonetheless. And a good one to see. So what I was saying to you is that I think we're going to go and start investigating around here. Not quite in and around the rooms, but there's some other nice forested roads behind the dam, the Chitwa Dam. And maybe we'll find young Hosanna tucked away, curled up, maybe just having a snooze. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then if that fails, then we will have a look at the hippos and see what other birds we can find around the dam. I have yet to do a birding drive since being back. So it'll be nice to just refresh my memory and, well, try and test myself. Right. So let's hop back on board with Scott and find out what Thandi and her little one are doing now.
Well, it's hard to be certain what they're doing because they're in some very, very thick bush. We can see a little bit of movement, so I'm guessing the cub is still playing around with Mom. But I'm confident they're going to spend the rest of the day here. They're not very far from the termite mound that she has used for this cub as a base before. But it's impenetrably thick, and even with our little vehicle that can go just about anywhere, we sadly can't get you any views of where they are chilling out. But we've had such a wonderful morning that I think we would be greedy to want anything more. And I think we are going to head off and come back into this area later on this afternoon. Like I said, I'm confident that they're going to probably spend the rest of the day here, just relax, take it easy. I could be wrong, but I'm hoping that's going to be the case, and whoever comes back here this afternoon should be able to find them relatively easily. Magical, we're going to head off and see what else we can find and send you across to Steve, who's got some vultures. Look at what we have found, ladies and gentlemen. It's my first whiteback vulture nest on Djuma, and this one is active. And there is a male and female there that have probably recently just fixed up this nest because they should start breeding pretty soon. They will start laying eggs probably around now, generally taking place in South Africa between March and April, between April and June. And that is quite a nice thing to see. The male there and the female, it's very hard to tell which one is the male and female from this vantage point, but not to confuse the whiteback vulture with the Cape vulture. If you can zoom in on the eye there, Ferg, if you can have a look at the eye, it'll show it for you now. You see the eye is black. Cape vulture's got a yellow eye. They can easily be mistaken if you don't understand the size, but Cape vultures nest on cliffs. They don't nest in trees. And whiteback vultures are known to mate for life. And both of them will look after the chicks, and both will incubate for a period of almost 2 months. And the egg won't be left unincubated for more than a couple minutes at a time, while each of the parents goes off and feeds and forages, obviously feeding on meat primarily. One of the individuals will stay on the egg itself, and the other one will come back with about 1 kilogram of meat that it stores in its crop. It's quite something to see, a vulture flying along with this huge distended pouch underneath its neck. And that 1 kilogram or so they'll feed, obviously filling their belly, and then fill the crop and bringing it back for the female or the male that is sitting on the nest. I've never seen a whiteback vulture nesting in a marula, so this is a first for me. They quite like to nest in the crown of very tall, thorny trees, which are more inaccessible to the likes of predators. And Michelle, yes, it is a very big bird. Whiteback vulture is not the biggest of our birds here, I must say. It is the most common vulture we find in the Lowveld. But size, let me just have a look. It's only 95 centimeters. They get up to about 5.5 kilograms. So just over 10 pounds, 11 pounds, somewhere around 12 pounds. So that's not that big for a vulture. We've got bigger species such as let me just have a quick little look through here. We're the biggest, the leopard-faced vulture, gets up to 6.7 kgs, so it is only slightly bigger in weight, but it's a whole 10 centimeters taller when standing. And the leopard-face most definitely outcompetes any of these other vultures when it comes to feeding. It's marvelous to see, so we'll keep an eye on this nest because they'll be hatching a single chick in the next 2 months or 3 months or so. Wingspan. Ches asks, what is the wingspan of the vulture? And that is a very good question. I'll have a look in my app, but it doesn't actually give me any wingspan here, which is a shame. I'm going to have to look that up somewhere, but I would say it's close to 2 meters, 2.5 meters. But I'm afraid I don't have that information here. I'm going to have to look that up for you. I apologize. Any of the viewers out there might know the wingspan of the whiteback vulture? I might have it in my other beautiful raptor book. This one is actually a really good book. If you just give me a moment. I'm sure it'll be in here. White-backed vulture. Wingspan, 228 centimeters. 228 centimeters, so yeah, 2.2 meters. So that is a large bird, large bird. But when you look at the leopard-faced vulture, it's 2.8 meters. So that is far bigger than that of the whiteback. But the reason for their very large wingspan, here we go, having a little bit of a shake. Big wingspan, they've got very big, broad wings, which enable them to just coast on the sky, to pick up the air currents, which help them to fly with absolutely no effort at all. And they're waiting for the heat of the day before moving off to go and possibly find some food. And we'll wait a little while longer here and see if they do anything. In the meantime, we'll go back over to Taylor and see what she has for you.
Well, sorry, I just had to reposition all of a sudden because being charged by Speak's hinge tortoise, it's coming at us quite quickly. No, little guy, you can't. It wants to drive under I think it wants to come to our shade. I'm going to have to move it. No, I'm going to jump out. Sorry, that's the car, everyone. Why do you want to come here? It's not even scared. It's now at my feet. I don't think you'll be able to see it. Where on earth are you going? It's now just climbed over my shoe. It's a very friendly one. Now, as most of you know, you should never pick up tortoises because in their bursa sac, I just want to put it on the grass. Put it here. In their bursa sac, which is where they store their urine and they store all the water, when they get a fright, they'll use it as a defense mechanism and expel it, and it doesn't smell particularly pleasant. It literally changed its course and came towards us, and it's not afraid of humans. I've checked, it's not Gregory. It was quite happy for me to just move it gently. So if you do need to absolutely pick up a tortoise to move it off the road, so make sure it doesn't go under the car, because then we're not going to be able to go anywhere. Do it very slowly. Don't be too sort of aggressive and jump down at it, because you are going to give it a fright. Just go to it gently. You can't go under the tire. And then, of course, just be slow movement. You can see, look what I'm doing now. It doesn't really mind too much. Now let's go away. Go that way. So it released a little bit there, but I don't want it to get run over. But it's just going to keep coming to the car, so I think we're going to move away. Not too worried now, though. Lots of rain, lots of puddles of water, lots of things around for it to go and drink. But before we have to move it again, sorry, Seb, I'm going to jump back in. Before we get the tortoise stuck under our car. No, stop it. Go away. So it will find itself. It didn't release very much at all. I don't know why it's coming to the car like that. Come over here. There's some really, really nice hyena dung. And I know that you love to eat hyena dung. It'll be good for your shell to keep it nice and strong. Cool. My own doesn't smell very nice right now. Well, surprised by a tortoise. I've never had to change my route because of one before, so that's a first. And it'll be okay. It'll find a little bit of water to quench its thirst, but like I said, didn't release everything from that burster sack. Scott is not too far away, and he's found my favorite animal.
Well, luckily that tortoise had a very alert tailor this morning, and glad that she managed to rescue it successfully. We've stumbled upon a herd of elephants. They're tricky to see. They're all kind of seeking shelter in some quite thick vegetation, except for one that is right over there, giving us a good old sniff. And it really is heating up quite considerably, so I think a lot of the animals are going to be winding down and just moving a little bit more slowly. Elephants also love sleeping specifically in tambuti thickets. And I think it's mainly because there's just such deep shade that's created by the very dense canopy structure of the tambutis. So it could be where they are going to have their mid-morning siesta. This one here that we're looking at now, there's a bit of a class bully, it appears, and it was getting bullied a little bit earlier. At the moment, the bully appears to be bullying one of the trees in front of us. It actually just lay down, the school bully. It's hard to see, but he is lying down in there. He's also flatulating as we speak. It didn't sound like that. It sounds more like bubbles through water. Listen carefully. Because he was continuing to flatulate at quite a crazy rate, and I was hoping he was going to continue, obviously just lying on his belly like that. Oh, no way, so we can smell it. We can smell his fart. What next? Okay, well, not the best view, and not the best smell either. We're going to stay put though and see what these guys get up to, and send you back to Taylor.
We've got a fork-tailed drongo up in the tree. Before I even saw it, I heard it. It was singing its beautiful tune, but it seems to have settled down now. I wonder what had it excited earlier. Now, fork-tailed drongos have got the most awesome call, and I always talk about it being quite mechanical. It almost sounds like no other bird call really out here. But not only are they able to produce their own amazing sounds, they're very good at mimicking other birds. And my favorite story of fork-tailed drongos mimicking other birds was that, and I've told you guys the story before, although I know there's lots of new viewers, and I don't think I've told it for quite some time, where a fork-tailed drongo was mimicking a black-backed jackal. How amazing is that? Doing the black-backed jackal call. Not very well, but well enough that I could identify that it's now mimicking a mammal species rather than another feathered friend. And that happened many, many years ago. I count myself very lucky to have heard something like that, because since then, I only ever hear them trying to mock and mimic other birds. But that's a good spot up there on a dying knobthorn. No other birds in sight, and not sitting on a brown snake eagle's head. That's also another thing we seem to see the drongos doing, is actually sitting on the raptors' heads. That should get them to move away, you would think. But let's carry on. Let's see what else we've got down and around. I'm looking for some cool tracks, but I don't see any overly interesting ones right now, or not any that are very clear that we'll be able to see particularly well. So we'll keep on trying. And I wonder where Hosanna is. We're slowly venturing to this new road. I haven't been down it, but Seb was telling me how beautiful it is. So at some point we'll go down there and explore. I just don't know where I'm going to pop out now. Where am I going to pop out? Oh, no, never mind. I've told big stories to you. I know where I am now. Now, my candid son, you're wondering if this is really live. Yeah, yes it is. This is happening right now. We're in South Africa, funny enough. Not funny enough. In the Sabi sand, so the home of leopards. If you have been watching, you'll see why it's called the home of leopards. And I'm driving on a property called Chitwa. So you obviously know how to ask questions, seeing as though you've already done one. But you can ask away. You can, now that you know that we are live and we're not fibbing and telling you any stories, now you can ask us about the animals. So I hope that you continue watching and form the addiction that, the rest of us have. Right, Seb, we're going to go back through that deep crossing and then around over the dam wall.
Okay, sounds good.
No, is that for the way to get to the road? Sorry, I was asking a question. Seb thought I was making a statement. That beautiful one you were telling me about. That's
so we need to get on the
dam wall and then go down and behind. Cool. Well, that sounds quite exciting. We know where we need to go now, so perhaps before we do go exploring, maybe we'll have a quick look at the hippos. I suspect that they'll be getting ready to take a nap now, in mid-morning nap. Oh, I might even help myself to a marula or two. So while we pick up one of these freshly dropped marulas, off you go to Steve to see if he's got any more birds.
I don't have a direct bird, but actually one just landed on the tree there. Did you see him, Ferg? We weren't going to talk about directly about a bird there, but one decided to grace us with its presence, which is quite amazing because it actually keys in to everything I was going to talk about that dead tree. Now, first of all, what I wanted to talk about was the fact that that tree is extremely dead, and it was a knobthorn. You can see the crested barbet is busy doing his thing, and the tree was killed, potentially, most likely, by elephants in its search for the cambium and the bark at the base of the tree. And now the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because there's been a huge decline in large, mature knobthorns throughout the Kruger National Park over the last 25 years, and that has been attributed to the number of elephants in the population. And why that is relevant to what I was talking about is that's the whiteback vultures nest I saw there. It's the first time I saw them in a marula tree. They favor tall knobthorn trees like the one we see here, but they prefer them when they're alive because there's some foliage, there's a little bit of shade, and the branch doesn't have the potential to fall and collapse under the weight of 10 kilograms or 20 pounds of bird, which potentially could happen. So that tree, though, although it is dead, is a microcosm of ecosystems. We saw the barbet jumping in there, showed you woodpeckers yesterday. There are huge amounts of insects living within the wood and underneath the bark of this tree, and it will slowly and eventually break down into, you can hear the Sterling's wren warbler calling there as he's indicating the sunshine. I apologize earlier if I said a barred wren warbler. I meant to say Sterling's red warbler. And we're about to get a bypass behind the tree of a battalier. Can you see him, Ferg? Just off to the right. There he goes. There he is. Marvelous. Sorry about that. A little bit of distraction, but awesome that all this is happening at the same time. The Sterling red warbler is telling us that it is heating up, and it is indeed. I can feel it. But that tree there itself was a knobthorn will eventually turn back into nutrients in the cycle. Vultures and large raptors, including the bateleur, like to nest in trees like that one when they're alive, because it is the most difficult tree to climb as a predator, as a baboon. It's got thorns everywhere, but when they are dead, they are much easier, but huge habitat for woodpeckers, barbets, insects. You can hear the barbet calling in the background. It is a marvelous day. Tom, Halloween tree, yes, you could say that. With the right light and with the sun setting behind it, these kind of trees are fantastic for photography. Dave, I know, loves to set up a setting sun behind a dead tree like that. So they do look quite majestic and quite lovely in the landscape. And they are part of the system. And I was talking a little bit about elephants damaging these trees. It is a natural part of the process, natural part of the ecosystem. As FERC tries to capture these bateleur, that is a juvenile bateleur. You can see by the shape of its wings, but the tail is quite long and is quite brown. Now, when I say juvenile, the bateleurs only reach their breeding plumage at the age of about 7. So he essentially has got his training wheels on with that longer tail until 7 years of age, and by that stage will have proven to the male and females, depending on what sex it is, that it is a very efficient provider and hunter and flyer in the sky. So that is it for us right now with bateleurs and dead trees, but the ecology out here does not stop, and it's important to pay attention to it all. And we are going to continue on. As the warbler tells us, it is hot. We would like to get some wind in our hair. We are checking the entire Djuma property this morning. Scott is obviously busy and unable to leave a beautiful leopard and her cub, which is fully understandable. So we are taking the opportunity to explore, and we are not finding many animals, but it is what you expect when the vegetation is this thick. I mean, you saw how we practically drove past an elephant earlier, and if it wasn't for us stopping and seeing kudu, we would not have seen him. So we're going to keep checking the water points and all the roads, and we're going to go over to Scott, who I believe has left Thandi and is driving.
Yes, welcome back everyone. We've just had a short pit stop, stretched the legs, and are now continuing on, wondering what may be lurking around the next corner. Beautiful, beautiful day, but I must say it's heating up considerably. So looking forward actually to getting into some shade, having some breakfast. Dale, you'd like to know if there's any updates on Shadow and her daughter, not Barbara. Not that I'm aware of, but I have been out of the area for the last 2 weeks. I only got back a few days ago. So I'm not too clued up. I'm guessing all is okay. And they're just spending time kind of either on our property and we're not finding them, or further to the south and west of us. Shadow's territory overlaps other properties. She's not always on ours, which means we can't always go and look for her. So I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if any of you guys or any of the other safarians may know what's going on with Shadow and not Barbara, when last they may have been seen by some of the surrounding camps. Not Barbara's at an interesting age, because she's kind of just over a year old now, I think, which means she could be safe with regards to Hukumuri, a big new male leopard that's pushing into her mother's territory, or she may actually get killed by it. She may have already been killed by it, for all we know, because I don't know. But yeah, interesting times ahead for the leopard population and leopard dynamics here on Djuma, because there is this territorial shift and takeover currently happening. I find it interesting how it's happening almost in exactly the same way that it happened 3 years ago. So the male that's getting pushed out now is called Tingana. 3 years ago, he was arriving onto the scene from the same direction as the current new male, the Hukumuri male. And basically Tingana came in from the west and pushed Mvula, the old dominant male, out to the east. And it seems like this exact same kind of thing is happening again now, and Hukumuri is coming in from the west, pushing into Tingana's territory. And I think it's just a kind of matter of time now until Hukumuri completely overthrows Tingana. That's just my theory. But I mean, in the last 2 to 3 months, from the first time we've seen the Hukumuri male, he's been spending more and more time here on Djuma and pushing deeper and deeper into Djuma. And I'm hoping like crazy that Hukumuri doesn't get a hold of Thandi's cub, because if he does, that will be the end of that, which will be hugely tragic, of course. Okay. I'm going to head off to the treehouse waterhole, see if anything's happening over there, and while we do that, I'm going to send you off to one of the others, not sure who.
You had a 50% chance there, Scotty. You should have taken the gamble. We came down to do this road, but unfortunately it's very wet down here, and I know that at our rangers meeting yesterday we were talking about, well, I heard the guys talking about a spot down here and how boggy it was and that there were deep ruts and that the vehicles were starting to bottom out on it. So I don't think we're going to take a risk with all the rain that we've had. We'll let it dry out for a few more days. Where does this one go? Nowhere? I did see some bush back here just now, but no, I think they've run away. Okay, well, we'll go back the way we came then. Let me reverse. So we're not on any main roads anymore. Now, dances with dirt, since we're just talking about all the water and that we can't drive there. You've said, what happens if all the water dries up? Where do the fishing birds go and fish? Luckily for them, they've got wings, so they can just fly in search of a new spot. You know, fence lines and things like that obviously don't restrict birds, so they're quite lucky in that aspect. If there is a drought, they can just move on out of here and go and find a section of the Sabi River, perhaps the Sand River, and maybe up further north in Kruger there'll be some spots, so they can just move freely. The problem comes in for the animals that don't have wings. That's difficult. Then it becomes tough to try and find water, not necessarily for fishing, but just for drinking. And what would have happened many years ago is that the animals would have naturally gone towards the Drakensberg Mountains and drank from, well, the rivers and then from all those fresh springs. But they can't do that anymore, unfortunately, again, because of habitat loss. And we've obviously put up fences. Well, we didn't do it, but there are fences up that restrict them from migrating naturally. I'm just trying to see what's going on here. It's very quiet. Even the birds now, it's got so hot. Faith, do you know what the temperature is now? I'm going to guess though as well. It feels like it's about 26, 27 degrees Celsius already. I always like to try and guess and then we actually get the temperature. We'll see, but it's starting to feel humid as well. So it's going to be a hot day. So most of the animals are going to be moving out of the sun now, starting to feed closer towards the drainage lines or under some of these shaded trees. Luckily, it isn't a drought at the moment. No, it can't be. What do you think, Seb? So Faith says the interweb says it's 23 degrees Celsius. I feel like it feels hotter. Yesterday we were told it was 29 degrees Celsius when it felt much cooler. I think it's warmer than yeah. So I think what happens with the temperatures is that the temperature is being taken at certain intervals. So if it has got hotter, maybe it hasn't refreshed itself yet or taken a new current temperature. I don't know, because it's definitely a lot hotter than 23 right now. I can feel the sun already burning down on my skin. But because we're in March, the sun is not going to be too hot, too dangerous right now. We'll probably catch a little bit of a tan. Nothing a little sun protection, some sunscreen, can't fix, so we'll be applying some of that. Honestly, my hands are dirty. If I put it on, I'm probably just going to put dirt all over my face. War paint would be quite funny. There we go. So let's do a thing. Let's see what all the other presenters think. So let's jump on board with Scotty and see if he also agrees that it's warmer than 23.
Most certainly. The humidity levels are also quite high, which I think emphasizes the temperature. It's the stickiness and the mugginess of the low veld that makes it really tricky to bear. Obviously the temperatures also get high, but I find high temperatures and dry climates are far easier to handle than hot and humid conditions. I'm looking forward to 1 or 2 big storms. We haven't had nearly as many as we would normally have during a summer, and hoping that we do get lucky. The area also is desperate for more water. I know you're discussing little waterholes or puddles and ponds drying up with Taylor, and it certainly is a reality unless we get a lot more rain. But the way the global weather patterns are at the moment, I mean, things are shifting and changing so much, and who knows, maybe we'll have a rainy winter, even though it's technically not supposed to happen. I feel that the world over is experiencing quite different weather conditions. Just dangling my head over every now and then just to make sure there's no tracks of anything. In this area we could bump into Shadow and not Barbara, as well as the Hukumuri male. Those 3 leopards frequent this area. Hosanna as well, a young male. We're really spoiled. There's a huge amount of leopard around at the moment. Cool, well, we're about to arrive at a small waterhole, and Steve is already there, and he would like you to jump on board with him.
Yes, Fred, and we had a few little birds coming down to drink. Little seed-eating birds, canaries it seemed like. I didn't get a proper look at them, but we're hoping that they're going to come back again. But what's very noticeable is that where you see the water, and then above the water is the green grass, and then above the green grass is just a little spiky sort of tree, just above it, Ferg. You see it's a buffalo thorn, it sits in there, and you often find next to patches of water, you'll get flocks of birds that like to come in, and they'll sit in the spiky thorn tree itself, and then one by one and in groups fly down to the water, have a quick little drink, and then as anything spooks them, in one mass they flock off again back into the thorn scrub. And you'll see them kind of cycling that through and through and through. And the reason why I say seed eaters have a very, very high need for water. Any of you out there gone and had a few nuts and then not thought about having a drink of anything afterwards? See how long you can go for having a handful of nuts without drinking. It is a very difficult thing to do. So seed eaters have a huge requirement for water because the seeds that they feed on are very dry and lack water. Insect eaters, obviously they get lots and lots and lots of moisture from the insects that they eat. So it's a very common practice to find, especially this time of day, as it's warming up, as the predatory birds are at their lowest, you'll find you find all the small seed eaters accumulating in large flocks. Fortunately, that flock has just moved off as we wanted to talk about them, but you'll often find them coming down in groups onto water to have a little bath, have a little drink, and then off they go again, which is very, very important for their survival. So having a small little thorn tree next to a waterhole makes their life all that much easier. So I believe Scott says Djuma is desperate for water. I think we could do with a lot more water. I think the last rains have done very, very well, but we could always do with more. The dams could do with filling up, and all of these small puddles here will last a few more weeks before they dry up, or before the elephants wallow in them and the warthogs wallow in them and take all the mud and water away. But the rain would be nice, and I feel like there might be some more on the horizon. And we are going to be leaving our patch of water, and I believe Scott has found his own amanzi.
Yes, we have got to the treehouse waterhole, and there's a few of our friends here waiting for us. And you've seen a few blacksmith lapwings, the birds in the background, and now a tortoise of the terrapin variety. It's actually not a tortoise, it's a terrapin. So I'm not sure why I said that, and as you can see, it's just enjoying the morning sunshine, heating up, and not a worry in the world. It'll be interesting to know how many terrapins this little pond is home to. I'm sure it's quite a lot. Nina, you'd like to know how far is the Sand River from Djuma? I would say it's about maybe 3 to 4 miles, not far at all. It's to the south of us. But I've actually never driven from our southern boundary further south to the Sand River, something that I should probably do at some point in time. But yeah, not too far away. Magical. Okay, now we need to continue. I would like to get onto Shibam Road and go and check for any sign of the Hukumuri male moving there. It's one of his most usual pathways of entry and movement. The first time we ever saw him there in early December, actually on foot, and then Tristan came and established the sighting with the vehicle. And on many other occasions, multiple guides have had him coming in and along this road, so I just want to check carefully and see if he hasn't used his kind of pathway again. Oh, I thought I'd seen a cat in the grass. I'll show you what got my attention. Just looks like a head and 2 small ears looking at us. That got me very excited. But alas, it is nothing. I'm almost waiting, just double checking and kind of swiveling my head just to make extra sure. Alrighty. Good stuff. Well, it seems like we're all just driving about now, hoping to find you guys something, and probably also with breakfast in the back of my mind, or our minds, and we're going to send you across to Taylor to see how exactly she is getting along.
Well, now I'm hungry. I wasn't hungry. I might have to have another marula to calm those pains down. Definitely not starving, that's for sure. So we've moved off of Chitwa. We're going to go back down the boundary. I heard on the radio, they have an update that there are some more dogs. I don't know if there's maybe 2 packs now that have been seen down in the west. I think on Simbambili and that sort of area. No, I talk absolute nonsense. On Arathusa, my bad. And they were quite far from the boundary, but again, there's no such thing as far, and you can't really use far and wild dog in the same sentence because they travel so quickly. So I thought that maybe we'll just head down there and have a little squiz around, see if they have crossed back on the property. I haven't heard any more updates, but now that they said that they've got dogs down in the west, I'm wondering if the dogs that were seen at Nkoro may be a different pack of dogs, because I didn't see any more tracks running back this way. So a bit of a mystery. I don't even know where they actually crossed out and where they've been running around. I didn't see anything this morning. But again, it was a little bit on the dark side, so it is quite easy to miss tracks in the thick sand. So we'll have a little squiz again, so just doing a boundary patrol. And I can't tell you how many times I've done boundary patrols and then ended up bumping into Shadow. So that could be on the menu too. Although I don't really know where Shadow likes to hang around these days. I don't know if she's still enjoys sort of the western corner of Djuma. With Karula's disappearance, of course, there was a lot of shuffling around. She could have gone and ended up anywhere. Now, a question that is very difficult to try and answer. It's one from Joe, and it's, which is the biggest leopard in the area at the moment? Well, I've never seen the Anderson male. I've seen lots of video footage of him, and he looks enormous. He looks really, really big. And I've really only heard of talk of 2 leopards, for contenders for being the largest leopards, largest cats, because we know there's a lions in the Sabi Sand, and that is the Anderson male, and he lives sort of around Londolozi, Arethusa sort of area. And then the other one is a male that hangs around down in the southern corner of the Sabi Sand, and that is Mbavala. His nickname is Vin Diesel, so he's also a monster. I always tell you how I used to mistake him for a lioness, warming itself up on the rocks in the morning down on the Sabi River. And it was always a male leopard. He's huge, absolutely huge. So those are the 2 contenders for the biggest leopards. But in the area that we're driving in, it's of course going to have to be the Anderson male then, because Sabi, where, and you see him down Sabi Lion Sands, and at the Paul Kruger gate is quite far away from here. So I'd love to see the Anderson male. I hope I do. I always used to try and go and spot him, but never really had any luck. But he is known to be a ghost, though, as well. One day I'll get to see him, and I'll be very, very happy. But you're on Triple M now, and this is where I always bump into Shadow. She's always walking down the road. Remember that amazing sighting we had when she was carrying that scrub hair? And we had that, almost just swallowed another bug. And we had that entire sighting to herself for ages, for an hour and a bit, I think. It was magnificent. So maybe we'll get some luck today. I'm not really too bothered, though, that I haven't seen any big cats. It's been quite nice to do a little bit of birding. I'm glad we found the pods from the Anna tree. That was quite nice. And, so we'll see. There's a vehicle up ahead. I'm going to ask them about the wild dogs to get some inside information. Steve is also on the go, though, and perhaps something will cross his path, too.
Nothing really. We had some tracks there of a male leopard, and we've been following them for a little bit, and they've kind of ended up in the same area that we had tracks of a male leopard heading west back towards camp last night. So I'm a decision and assume that they are the same animal. The freshness of it is probably from yesterday afternoon, and it was probably around about the time that we were walking. So we just missed him, and we weren't able to follow any further because of the fading light. We made it back just in time to be safe. And there are loads on the road. Elephants have been crossing our path, but we have yet to come across any. So, yesterday when they were giving us quite a marvelous show. Okay, so having a few bad pictures my side, we're going to go over to Scott for his saying goodbye.
Well, we just passed Steve, and he was busy investigating some leopard tracks. I'm guessing he may have told you that. In that same area, obviously, that we were just kind of at, the tracks were heading towards the treehouse waterhole. They didn't look very fresh, and he did mention on his bushwalk yesterday afternoon that he did find some tracks just in front of where he was actually on the trail, and it could well have been the same animal from yesterday. It's always tricky telling how fresh tracks are, like this morning when we found Thandi's tracks with the cub. I wasn't convinced at how fresh they were, but not far down the road, there they were. So, tricky business. And with all the leopards around at the moment, it's really impossible to, well, not impossible, but it's almost foolish to try and take a guess as to what's going on, because there's so many different males that we could see. There's 4 different males that we could see. Actually 5 if we include Djuma. And, Shadow, she's been moving through the area. Kuchava sometimes comes into our southeastern kind of corner. Thandi, the Ingrid Dam female. So that's 4 females that we can also bump into. 9 leopards on what is a tiny, tiny little piece of property. Probably only about 1,500 hectares, I would say. So very fortunate at the moment with the density of leopards. Long may it last. Robbie, you'd like to know if anyone's checked Janet Jackson's cavity in a tree recently? I'm not too sure. I've been away on leave for the last 2 weeks. But I do know that prior to going on leave, I did swing past there a few times, and she didn't seem to be there. That was towards the end of the middle of February. How does it work? January, February, March. And I went on leave mid-February. So it would have been just before mid-February that I checked there a couple of times, no sign. It'll be worth popping back in there at some point. Next time you're watching, let us know a little bit sooner, earlier on the drive, and I'll be happy to go especially there for you. So yeah, let us know next time you're watching, and you can give us a reminder to pop in there. Okay, so we are approaching the quarantine clearings, and I was just going to say, I'm guessing there's going to be some elephants here, but before I could even come around the corner, there was one. And it looks like a young bull, enjoying some marula fruits. I was hoping we were going to find Daryl, a big elephant bull. He's been hanging out here quite a lot recently. But it's just a youngster who appears to be all on his own for now. Now sometimes they put multiple fruits into the tip of their prehensile trunk. You see, it looks like he's grabbing about 2 or 3 and throwing in 2 or 3 of them into his mouth at a time. It is definitely one of the elephant's favorite foods, and they are in full fruit at the moment. Lots of ripe marulas dropping from the trees. Interestingly, they don't really chew on them much. They just perforate them ever so slightly. But they come out in their dung almost the same way they went in. But I'm sure a lot of the tasty juices seep out of the fruit. Very high in vitamin C. Nina, you'd like to know if baby elephants will ever kind of suck the end of their trunks. And kind of yes. I mean, excusings, little sneeze there. Yes, I mean, more often than not, I've seen them almost kind of chewing on the end of their trunk. I guess it could be termed sucking the end of their trunk. I haven't noticed it for any kind of prolonged periods. It's just usually for a kind of short period of time they'll do that. Wonderful stuff. Let me just... Oh no, he's heading off into quite a thick area, so let me see if I can get us a little bit further forward and snipe another view of him. There's not much time left. So I'd like to just say a big thanks for jumping on board this live safari extravaganza. Be sure to try and tune in this evening if you'd like to spend some more time with Thandi and her cute little cub. I'm feeling confident that one of us will get lucky with her. And for the last few seconds you can enjoy, hopefully, this elephant. Not really. Goodbye.